Hello and welcome, my friends. Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin and welcome to episode 4 of Rushcast. I'm just joined by Paul Conroy, the drummer extraordinaire of Audio Scope. Check out their debut album, Secret and Lies. And yes, it's episode 4. So this is it. We've arrived to the first masterpiece, 2112. Where do we go from? Well, where do we start? I've got a Paul's got his LP edition.
Yeah.
How old is that?
Oh, I'm trying to remember when I bought this.
I've got a mini.
Well, I've got
here.
the CD version as well, but this it's not an original pressing. I think I bought this. Oh, it was either late 70s or early 80s. I think I got it. It was one of.
Holy Lord.
Yeah,
my edition's has got a misprint on it actually because I've got a picture of the Bee Gees on the back of mine. I don't know about yours.
Mine has. It's got the same as well.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone ever noticed that, but there you go.
That's it. They were going through their kimono stage. They loved it, Something that Geddy Lee would comment on later and said we were never good at the dressing up thing, but they only really ever wanted to play in jeans and t-shirts. That was it. They did.
Yeah.
But they were saying, well, you've got to put more stage gear on, and this was the start of it.
Well, I guess this was the priests of the temples of I can't pronounce it.
Syrinx.
Syrinx, yeah, that's it. Maybe they were going for that look. I don't know, but
possibly. I think it was a bit more random than that, from what I can remember Geddy Lee saying. I think they just said I would try them and book them up.
Maybe the record company hired a stylist.
Might have been, but it was ill advised.
I got a cheap deal of monos and went, if you can.
Oh, that'll do.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, so if this is your first episode, go back to the beginning, and we are doing a different Rush album every week, and we're going to be working our way through the whole back catalogue, including solo albums and side projects. So I guess we'll take a slight step back and pick up where we left off. So we did Caress of Steel last week, and we touched upon it. This was the album was unsuccessful commercially and critically, although time has been very kind to that album, and I'm sure it's the fans don't have anything against it really, but it was a flop at the time, and there was a bit of pressure from the record company to the bands to start making their numbers up. They had they were in good stead on the first 2 albums, but things sort of plummeted on the Caress of Steel. People just weren't ready for what the band had in mind, and the time has told really that there's a couple of different ways at looking at it, but maybe the band attempted on Caress of Steel, they mastered it on 2112. Maybe the world had just caught up at this point. I think a big factor for this album's success is Tommy from The Who. I think people kind of got the idea then of listening to an album that was a concept and all the rest of it. And this was, Tommy's good. But have you heard this? This one kind of it was slowly but surely built up and through word of mouth, which is the best advert. So the bands were pressured really to deliver something a bit more commercial, and they rebelled and went, no, we're going to go out swinging, and did the concept of 2112, which is a 4-part song entirely, just over 20 minutes. It takes up the whole first half of the album. And then on the second half, we've got, I can't read A Passage to Bangkok, The Twilight Zone, Lessons, Tears, and Something for Nothing. And there's a stroke of genius on this album in many ways, but the music we'll get into, because I think this is, this is one of the albums I think is objectively a 10 out of 10. But it's a masterpiece in another way, because the band's really, to use a modern term, they trolled the record label. Because they were told, we need a single, we need a hit, we need, We need commercially viable music from you, and this whole 12-minute songs, 20-minute songs isn't going to cut it. So they delivered a 20-minute concept which took up the whole first half, and then on the second half went, well, you've got a radio rock song, you've got a ballad, you could argue a country song.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, well, you've got everything that you asked for on that second half. So you can market that and do what you want with that. Everything you asked for, we give you. But you've got this 20-minute epic at the beginning, and we're doing, they really did went, well, here we go. We've not breached any contract here. We've not gone back on any agreement. But there is that.
Yeah.
So when that album would have been delivered to that record company, and they would have gone, what the hell is this? Whilst listening to 2012, we wanted this. You've got that. You've got that.
Yeah.
No, we did that. It's all on the second half.
Yeah.
Genius.
It was
genius.
It was genius. But they were really under a lot of pressure at this time for all them reasons that you've just said. And they were faced with a choice: either sell out or keep their integrity. And they plumped for integrity. And I think I've got a quote here from Alec Lifeson. He said, that came from a different place, more from a place of defiance and anger, that things were sort of going the way the things that were going on around them at that time. So we were fighting back. A lot of pressure on us from the record company, and to some degree from management, to go back to our rock roots, make another Rush album. And we basically said, you know what, that's not what we're about. If we go down, we're going to go down in flames. So, and Neil Peart said about this as well, that they had some discussion between the three of them. They thought, look, if this is going to be the last hurrah, then fine. We're going to do it our way. And no, we're not going to listen to you. No, we're not going to write commercial songs. No, you can't tell us what to do. And no, we don't care anyway. And that really is what fueled this album. And you can hear that in the way that they play it. There's a lot of, it's really it's an onslaught. I know I've said this with Anthem on Fly By Night, but the overture, the opening sequence of 2112 is basically, it is just open defiance. And it's almost like the band is sticking their two fingers up really at the establishment and saying, take this, just.
Well, I would argue as well, this is, in continuation of analysing the band's sound as we're doing, because we're going from album to album. This is the first album where Rush sound like Rush. So far, over the past couple of weeks, we've gone, oh, there's a bit of Zeppelin here, or a bit of Budgie there, or a bit of Genesis here, and a bit of Yes. This is the first one where this is Rush.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like anyone else, and no one else sounds like this.
Yeah.
And you could say this is the first true Rush album as we know and love them now.
Yeah, definitely.
There's obviously developments along the way, and which we covered. But I think this is where the band really finally arrived, and thank God it did work out. But even if it didn't, even if this completely flopped as well, and the band split up, I think they would have got together 20 years later, 30 years later, and gone, well, they were good albums. It might not have been this or done that, but we're proud of what we've done,
Yeah.
And I think as well, even if it hadn't have worked out at the time, over the years, it would have been known as, these are the most underrated band ever, and these are the,
Yeah.
But thankfully, it worked out the way it did, because we got a hell of a lot of good albums to follow.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So the opening track is a concept, a story. Not quite sure where to start with this one, really. I don't know if to talk about the music or the lyrical concept, but
well, I think you can probably try and do both at the same time. Very difficult, but obviously 2112 is, and it says it on the album, the book of Ayn Rand, which is The Fountainhead, and it's all about the individual against the masses, the individual against the state, and the powers that be, and it's a man's struggle against that, and obviously Piet, with his imagination, put it into this futuristic setting, and it was, and it's science fiction as well, because it's a place called Megadon, isn't it? And so it's sort of sci-fi fantasy, but with the attribute to that, and it's all about an individual discovering something from the past and trying to present it to the priests, and then they're rejecting it, and they're saying, no, that was the ancient people and they destroyed themselves or whatever. But it's all about that. It's all about the journey of an individual against the masses and popular opinion.
And yeah, it's it's in order to protect, you will always inevitably become, don't want to say a dictator, because it's not quite what I'm getting at.
Well, you become a martyr. You can become a martyr to it.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, if you protect too much, you become.
Oh, I see what you mean. Beg your pardon. Yeah.
You could do it with your children, for example. Yeah. You can, in order to protect too much, you end up becoming a tyrant. There you go.
Yeah.
And
you're talking it from the priest's point of view.
For their own good, it's but you end up strangling. And the priests of the temples of Ceres, I got it. Are actually an analogy for the record company as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a very, the way they put it is, it's extremely clever and very articulate. But just the way the song comes in with that swirling synth sound, it creates an atmosphere straight away. And of course, it just comes in really.
It's an instantly recognizable intro as well. As soon as you hear that, almost like a whistle, it's straight away. You just, like a dog hearing the doorbell ring, straight away you go, that's 2112. Yeah, it straight away. That sound exists nowhere else. And then one of the best intros ever to a song, just ba bam, ba ba bam 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 bam, and then it's I can't not listen to this song without a smile on my face, because it's just brilliant. Like bam 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 bam. You can't help but air drum to it, or air guitar to it.
Absolutely. And again, it's got that sort of almost like a galloping. It's very bombastic and right in your face. Again, it's really, it's just superb. Just a superb way. And you think, this album has definitely started. We're in and it's like, well, they called it the overture, 2112 overture part. And it's goes on. It's effectively an instrumental, isn't it? Straight away, you got the high cries. Yeah, you got the high cries of Geddy in the background, and then
that's one thing I wanted to ask you, actually, because I was always wondered this. So you got the in the sort of thick of it all, the parts, and then this, I don't know if it's keyboards. It sounds, I thought to beginning, like a violin, like someone has just gone like slowly, but this
no, he's
melody comes and on All the World Is a Stage, Geddy just harmonizes, he just sings.
He does. But that's what they have. That's what they always did live. It is.
That's what. Yeah. He's
just his voice. I think
on the distorted mic, but he just harmonizes along with it.
It is. It's sort of multi-layer in his voice to give that.
That is just the multi-layer of Geddy's voice.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. And it, as you said, it's heavily affected, so it almost makes it sound like a keyboard. I don't think there's any keyboard on that bit.
Because I can imagine. Imagine them playing that to an orchestra with an orchestra.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, you can just imagine like the strings, like the thing just going, you know, along with it, and it'd just be epic. But
Yeah, I'm just looking at the notes on that. No, it doesn't say anything about any keyboards apart from what you hear at the beginning.
yeah,
That whirl of the synthesizers at the beginning. And then of course,
it could be on guitar. It could be, you know,
and there's
something on
also
guitar.
it could be, yeah, it may well be actually. I think it's, and then you've got obviously the big explosions and everything at the end of it anyway. Before that line, and the meek shall inherit the earth, taken from the Bible. It and that is sung over the top of Alec Lifeson just picking a little bit of Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture. It's just a little bit, just to let you know that it's called the overture.
Yeah.
So it's again very clever.
And during the thing as well, we just mentioned earlier, I found it's official as well. It's on Rush's official YouTube channel, an animated video of the whole 2112, where it's sort of in comic book form.
Yeah.
And there's some pieces of writing as well to sort of guide the story along. And during that bit, during the crashing and all that, it's like a war in space going on, isn't there?
Mm.
So, I mean, he was probably, you know, Neil Peart, he did love a book, and no doubt he would have definitely have read Dune by then, Frank Herbert.
Oh, I would have thought so. Yeah.
So yeah, the whole an ancient race has moved on, and they're left there with these priests overlooking society. Yeah. And then we go into the story. Bam, 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 bam. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, the Temples of Sea Rings, yeah. And it's heavy. I mean, Temples of Sea Rings is a heavy song. Probably, I don't know where some people would say, probably heavy metal in places with.
Oh, no, definitely.
It's nothing compared to what heavy metal.
I wouldn't go so far. Yeah, I mean, there is plenty of bands that you know, on the strictest of terms, you would say aren't metal, but metalers like them, you know. And I think Rush are definitely one of those bands.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go. I wouldn't describe them as a metal band. I'd call them a progressive rock. But look, this is just as heavy as anything Sabbath put out at the time. So you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty heavy, isn't it? And it's quite.
I would have thought it would have been considered metal at the time. I would have thought so. I mean,
that's what I'm thinking. I mean, obviously, metal has moved on quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, but people forget how versatile musically those first 6 or 8 Sabbath albums are. I mean, Sabbath 1 was released really like the arse end of 1969. It was sort of December 1969.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think 78 was the last one they did with the original lineup. Like, yeah, it wasn't even 10 years. It was just 8 albums straight out. But again, the evolution over those 8 albums, and the mixture of different people do forget. Everyone kind of thinks Sabbath are this slow. Everyone thinks War Pigs and Black Sabbath. No, there was loads of all sorts of influences.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
So yeah, if that's metal, then I can't see. This album, anyway, in particular, wouldn't have been considered.
No, it probably wouldn't have been. No, I guess not. But you got a tiny little slice of it here with this song, and it's quite angry, isn't it? And Geddy's voice with that high pitch, being the priests, and they're barking all of this out. What they're saying is, it fits it very nicely. It's very harsh, and and computers filling the hallowed halls, you know. Yeah, you just think, yeah. Our great computers, that was it. Fill the hallowed halls. Doing something that is not really there, you know. It's in a place that it shouldn't be, sort of effectively.
Well, there's the we provide the images.
Yeah.
In your.
Yeah, which parallels with I know we're going slightly off track again here. Pink Floyd's Welcome to the Machine. which Wish You Were Here, which talks about, oh, what did you dream? Oh, it's all right, we told you what to dream. You know.
Well, I think there's a bit of elements of Brave New World in this story as well.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of you've got the utopia, but you've got the savages that live outside, and they're disgusting. They are. I mean, they have babies naturally. I mean, who'd have thought?
Yeah.
Can you imagine such a thing? And John, rather than discovering a guitar, which is in 2112, he discovers the complete works of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And then, don't not to go too far for him, but when he confronts the man that's running the city that they live in a locker, he has also a copy of the complete works of Shakespeare and also the Bible.
Yeah.
And he says, like, why wouldn't you let the people read this and have this? And well, he then explains why they can't have it. Basically, they can't. He explains how it's not good for people to have a thing of beauty and ugliness and light. And he's like, no, that complicates things. We give them one straight path to walk down, and nothing's complicated. So there's a lot of parallels in lots of different stories that are going along at the same time, and it was obviously I would have thought a half common theme at the time. With you mentioned Pink Floyd as well, but no, it's a cool story. It's I'm just trying to find that lyric. It sounds a little similar to we've taken care of everything. The words you read, the songs you sing, the picture that give pleasure to your eye.
That's it.
One for all for one, working together, common sons. Never need to wonder how or why. You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, yes, it is it. And it's I think it was the other little bit on there. Look around this world we've made, equality, our stock in trade. Come and join the brotherhood of man. What a nice contented world. Let the banners be unfurled. Hold the red star proudly high in hand. Well, it's
obviously
is yeah. It sort of smacks a bit of the communism, basically, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that is the
that's the famous Rush logo that would be with them for many, many years and would be emblazoned on Neil Peart's bass drum,
which some people mistake as satanic, but
yes,
heard it from the horse's mouth. No, it's actually a anagram. Is that the right word? Analogy for communism. And it's the naked, innocent individual up against it.
Yeah, and resisting it, and that's it's a positive thing, But yeah, some again great lyrics on this. I mean, it says it all, really, doesn't it?
I mean, it's a 20-minute song, and we go, it's off-putting to some listeners where you go, have you ever listened to Rush? And, oh no, prog rock, 20-minute songs. Oh no, I can't be having none of that. But this 20 minutes flies by.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
I never noticed. You never, Tubular Bells. You do tend to look at your watch and go, oh, come on, hurry up. But this just it flies by, and it is 4 separate songs as well. It kind of comes together at the end. There's a few repeated bits here and there, but overall, but in that 20 minutes as well, so much ground is covered.
Oh yeah,
you've got acoustic, you've got
it does, doesn't it? It ebbs and flows quite a bit throughout the song, really, and say after the first 2 parts, which are really quite strong and in your face, it then just sort of goes down a couple of gears, doesn't it? And then you get the after this Temples of Syrinx, you go into the Discovery part, which and Alec Lifeson's fake not knowing what he was doing on a guitar bit, just sort of plucking strings. And I'm thinking, oh, he should have given the guitar to me. I would have done it very naturally, badly. But it's clever. I think it's very clever how it's done. I want
to know how someone finds a guitar behind a waterfall that's probably been there for thousands of years.
Yeah.
That just happens to be in tune. And the strings just happen to work.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, it's perfectly preserved.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So there we go.
For all
science fiction.
Yeah. Well, for all guitarists everywhere, that's their dream, that they never have to tune the guitar; they just pick it up and play. But it's a nice, and with that, the trickle of the waterfall and the out of tune guitar, and then gradually you can just hear him constructing something melodic. And yes, very folky, quite folky, isn't it?
Yeah, really? Definitely.
But it works so well.
So then it comes on. It starts picking up the pace a little bit, sort of slightly soft rocky, as the characters explaining to the priest his discovery and listen to my music, and then it goes really dramatic as they confront him and cast him out. And
that's it. It does go very quickly from that third part, discovery, into presentation. And well, again, I think Geddy's performance on this is very good. I mean, he sings quite calmly and very melodically as the protagonist, I suppose, if you want to put him that way, the man. And then contrast it with them high-pitched vocals of the priests, really sort of laying into him, basically, and actually dismissing him, saying, yeah, we know, we've heard it all before. And it again, very clever, and you're definitely getting that. I think some people would say it's sort of like a Q&A, question and answer to each other all the way through. It's got this, they're sort of dueling effect.
And he's changing his voice as well for every character as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a little detail that gets overlooked.
Yeah, I think the comment in here in the book about it, they think that Lee's vocal performance actually has gone up a gear on this album, and they think that partnership between Lee and Peart's lyrics it's a lot smoother on this album, and Lee's doing the lyrics more justice than what he's done in the previous albums, which I think is probably disingenuous personally, because I mean there was a lot. The lyrics of Peart have always been challenging, so to try and sing them must have been so difficult. But here they feel that, or certainly the comments in here, that they've cracked it. They've sort of got the combination right, and it really does it a lot of justice, what the story's all about.
I'd say it's one thing actually, they never did it, and probably for the best actually, but I'm going to ponder it anyway, that they never, you could say, did a sequel or extended it. Iced Earth had a famous little concept where they did it was 3 songs at the end of the album. I forgot what it was now. I've got it here somewhere. Something Wicked This Way Comes. I'm trying to see if it's got these songs here. Birth of the Wicked. No, it might be Prophecy, Birth of the Wicked, and The Coming Curse. Can't quite remember now. But it must be it. So it was a 3-song concept, at the end of the album. And they later on revisited it, but extended it to a whole album. And
sometimes you can't really revisit something like that. I think it loses its intensity.
Yeah,
and the problem is you could end up padding it out too much.
Yeah, and it didn't work. 10 out of 10 for trying and all that, but it was like, yeah, you should have left that as it was.
Yeah, possibly a step too far.
Started with a new out. So it did make me ponder because, again, I'm thinking of Tommy and Quadrophenia and albums like that, or you could even say The Wall. It was quite good that they weren't actually tempted to sort of go, actually, we could extend that a little bit and add this and add that, and maybe it was a bit. Yeah, and I'm glad they didn't.
I'm glad they didn't.
And thank God they never did a sequel as well, because Queensryche learnt that one the hard way when they did a Operation Mindcrime 2. It was just no, didn't work. And
I think it's knowing. I think that's where the wisdom comes in, is knowing how far to push it, and then when to say, right, that's it, and step off and do something else.
And the ending is a bit, ambiguous. It ends up with the what we think is the ancient society that has moved on has come back, but it is. I saw a thing with Neil the other day in doing research for this, and he said no, that is the cavalry coming.
Yeah, he wanted to end it on a positive note.
Because the first time I've heard it and all that, I thought, is this like a invasion thing? Is this no? That is, it's a happy ending. It's the cavalry.
It's basically liberation for them. But to get to that, obviously, unfortunately, the central character, he goes through this emotional roller coaster, doesn't he? After presentation and everything being basically, everything's been poo-pooed, and the temple, the priests say, don't annoy us further. We have our work to do. In other words, just get out, forget it. It's just a waste of time. It's going out after that. He goes into, the next part is the oracle, the dream, and he goes into a deep sleep, and he's visited, or he's been transported light years away, and sees the civilization of the ancients, and everything's free, and people expressing themselves, people having the freedom to do so, and living life joyfully, as opposed to what he was experiencing under the priests. So it to have that again, you've got that musical theme sort of coming back to with the accents in this, but again, it's a very I think it says here, with hungry mind and open eyes, the antithesis of the lessons taught by the priests. The oracle reveals to the protagonist that these idyllic civilizations belong to an elder race who left the planet long ago. And the oracle then reveals that the elder race plans to return home to tear the temples down, home to change.
There we go.
And that's before it goes into soliloquy.
And I say, maybe what would have happened if they extended on it, but I don't think it's a theme that ever really leaves Rush. I mean, obviously you got songs like Free Will, in Red Barchetta, and I just don't. It wasn't. Neil always explored being free, but without being. Well, no, he explores it really in Clockwork Angels as well.
Well, definitely. Yeah.
It's exploring the pursuit of freedom, but not without anarchism. Basically, it's being free without being free in the world without destroying the world.
Yeah. It is something that he would come back to a few times and present it in a slightly different way and from a different angle. Yeah. So it was always fresh. And
you could argue as well, Clockwork Angels is Neil revisiting 2112 a bit older and wiser, really, because obviously he's very young and very idealistic at that, as he would be, as anyone is at that age. And it's Neil coming full circle and coming to the conclusions of the questions he's asking in Anthem 2112, so on and so forth, you know.
Yeah,
so,
I think so.
There's a spoiler for you all.
No, I think so.
But join us along the journey along the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the 6-part soliloquy, I think that's how it's pronounced, soliloquy, finds our character is lowest. He's very depressed and suicidal. So, and he decides to end it all. And again, it's quite a full-on sounding piece, isn't it, this? And certainly the guitar solo sort of gradually ramps up after Lee's. It's quite a dejected sort of vocal line, isn't it, to reflect the subject matter. But so as it builds up the solo at the end, finally heralded by the bawling guitar solo, the character kills himself. I mean, obviously my lifeblood spills over. So it's very sad, really.
Because if he just held on, he
would have seen, as it calls it, the grand finale. You know, but you can. I do when I listen to it. You can sort of feel. I think they've captured the emotion perfectly there. How that person would have felt. Basically, there's seemingly no hope, there's no change, and I mean the line, I don't think I can carry on this cold and empty life. I think again very clever, and it does capture the emotion very well. And I remember them playing this when I first saw them, which was on Permanent Waves tour. They played not all of 2112, they just played bits of it, but they sort of interspersed it throughout the set.
Yeah, they would on and off, wouldn't they? Sometimes they just sort of do the opening section.
Yeah.
And well, up until the Temples of Syrinx, but on and off they would do the whole thing, didn't they? I mean, they did the whole thing on All the World's a Stage.
They did 5 of the 7 parts. They didn't do the entire version on the 2112.
Oh, did they not? Oh, okay.
No, they do. When I looked at it, I looked at that the other day, All the World's a Stage. They do the overture, Temples of Syrinx, and then it's presentation. They miss out Discovery, and they miss out Oracle.
Oh, okay. I'll stand
corrected.
They do.
Yeah. So it's parts 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7. That was it. So they played this bit, and it was always very.
Did they ever do the full?
They did the full one on. There's a full version of it on the Different Stages live album, which I think was either the Counterparts tour or the Test for Echo tour.
Oh right, okay.
I can't remember.
As that?
I think it was as late as that. Whether the times I see them, they never did a full version of it, but they would play parts of it, and they generally always played the overture and the Temples of Syrinx.
Yeah.
And then grand finale to finish the night.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. I mean, like Rush do, and like any big bands do, they would rotate things, and they might only play 2 parts of it or whatever. But I think it was rare that they did the entire side, and even on the 2112 tour, which is All the World's a Stage.
That's quite funny because the Who only did Tommy actually in full. You'd be surprised quite recently, after 2010. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, they do it on Live at Leeds, and they did it here, and they did it because Live at Leeds, the expanded edition anyway.
Yeah.
Second disc where they do Tommy, they do it. You think they do it on the second half of the Isle of Wight as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of DVDs and things of them doing Tommy. But yeah, they said on this particular release, they do it at the Royal Albert Hall during the Teenage Cancer concerts, performed live in full for the first time. And all those other times, they were certain songs missed out.
Yeah, certain parts.
Yeah, that was actually the only time they did actually every single song on it. But you wouldn't have noticed.
No, you wouldn't have noticed. I think I think the reason, again, we'll obviously end up talking about this when we end up reviewing All the World's at Stage, but I think at that particular point in the time, that tour of 2112 was basically all high energy stuff. So anything acoustic was sort of just not put in. So the Oracle and the Discovery are quite laid back, whereas it was
during a concert you want to keep that momentum going,
and it wasn't. So they put the stronger pieces in it, but they virtually did the whole of 2112 on 2112's tour. So it was a good representation of it, which is something Rush would always do anyway. They'd always champion their new record and play lots of songs, or the majority of the songs from their new release.
Yeah, and that was always, that's something they do share with Iron Maiden as well.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they always make a point of, the new album.
That's it, they're showcasing it. And I think with regards to playing things in their entirety, I think it's become more of an in thing to do now when they like celebrating anniversaries of albums, and then they'll do the full album and play the full album live, and lots of bands sort of started doing that. And
it seems to have been, I mean, I think with the concept album, when that was a thing, it was obviously, Pink Floyd, used to do Dark Side of the Moon in full.
Oh yeah.
I think they did it full for they did the whole album a good year before they even recorded it, didn't they? Because they were testing it out, and obviously they did the Wall in full. But it wasn't. So for concept albums and such, it was done there and then. Yeah. But the whole playing the album in full thing, that's quite a new.
Yeah, it is really. Lots of bands. I think it's quite a good thing, because people say, "Oh, I really like that album," so it just.
Well, I think as well, especially for certain bands, they might, another new album might just fall on deaf ears. But if they go, we're playing this album, that's going to attract people it probably wouldn't have attracted otherwise.
Yeah.
And by the way, here's 3 new songs off the new album at the end. You can buy it on the way out.
Yes, exactly. But now we got you here. You can buy this.
What works.
Yeah.
It's certainly.
Yes, it's It's. But going back to, what a good way to finish this side off with grand finale. Again, effectively, it's an instrumental, but it's really punchy, really pushing. It basically talks about, it's basically them taking over again. So it's also a battle, and basically dethroning the priests, basically completely crushing them. I think it was just a great way to finish it off, of the elder race returning home. It wasn't just a dream, because that's what the priests were pushing for. It was just mythology, there's no real truth in it. They left and they've gone and destroyed themselves or whatever. But what it says here, I'm just quoting from the book again, says here, aside from the fantastic goal of the band deciding to open their album with this grandiose and ambitious epic, it is a pleasing piece because in many objective ways significantly better than the band's previous attempts. Talking about the Fountain of Lamnef.
Yeah.
The lyrics flow, it has an arc, it's a story with an arc to it, and the vocals express the lyric brilliantly. That's what it says here. Music thematic, and while songs like Fountain of Lamnef may have well just been a collection of separate songs, stitched together in aid of a common lyrical theme, 2112 is unquestionably one piece. The parts flow in and out together and fit tonally and melodically, and they reference each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think anyone would argue, 2112 is, them hitting on the head this time around what they did previously attempts on the Fountain of Lamnef. But even the Fountain of Lamnef, a failed attempt, shall we say, that failed attempt is still more ambitious and more, it's still better than what 90% of bands achieve in their entire career.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Like we say, Rush on a bad day.
Well, yeah.
Many a band would like to, achieve that sort of level, but
Well, yeah, absolutely. I say a bad Rush song would be a good one for lots of other bands.
yeah,
It's just something about them and just how they did things is something to be admired. And certainly as a fan, it's just exciting to listen to. I always enjoy how they did things and how they played and what they were singing about and expressing. It just
I mean, I've always been well aware of what a great album this is, but yeah, been listening to it this week for this episode. It is like,
yeah.
This isn't a cliche, or if it is a cliche, it's cliche for a reason.
Yeah.
This really is a stunning piece of work. It really is just
It
brilliant.
is, and I think it definitely deservedly gets the accolade of being a classic album.
Yeah,
and it is a classic album, and I think because of the backstory and the pressure they were under, it's a defiant and an act of basically pure rebellion, but so cleverly done that it really connected with the people. It connected with the fans, and just as the tour of Caress of Steel was a massive disaster, this tour was a massive success. And this got them to the point, and I know we've sort of touched on it, that this was the album that broke them. This was the album that made them to that point where the record company couldn't say anything to them anymore because the album was being bought massively. And this is where the deal was brokered, that from now on they would produce the album, they would package the album, and they would present it to the record company as a finished product. There was no interference from anybody. Yeah. I think Peart said we had reached that plateau where nobody could say anything anymore.
Yeah, we will deliver a finished album every 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the album that did it. And this was produced under great pressure, and that to me makes it even more special. Because the pressure they must have been feeling to just try and sell out. And bravo to them for holding on to their integrity. And I think that's something that's made them all the more respected. I think not just by fans, but I think by other musicians too, and other bands. And yeah, it was a good tour for them, and they certainly sold everything well. And I know we're going to do a recap anyway, but I think again chart positions on this one: Canada number 5, didn't chart in the UK, strangely enough, but US it was 61. Which is a massive jump from what Caress of Steel was.
Yeah.
And I think they really overcome their disappointment because they were very proud of Caress of Steel. It was an album they were proud of, and they were really disappointed that it didn't do as well as they wanted it to do.
Oh yeah, and also, I think we've said time's been kind to that album, and I'm sure the sales have as well. I mean, again, I think many of the band would quite like the sales of that flop. So,
Well, yeah, I would,
Yeah. But so we're nearly an hour in, and we've only covered one song so far.
But it's one that had to be covered, really.
Oh, of course, yeah. But I think as well, a lot of people, we're going to get into it now. I think people tend to think the second half is a bit of a throwaway. So, you've got this epic, and then you just got a few bits tagged on at the end. But not the case at all. So, let's flip over to side 2, and opening with one of the best riffs I've loved is that. It's got a menace to it. It's got a bit of attitude to it. That riff, and just really cool, sort of swaggering riff.
Yeah, it is. and then you get that little Oriental, which is sort of slight. To me, it's sort of a bit tongue in cheek, but it fits.
It does fit, and I do suspect that was added right at the last minute. I think the song was what it was, and they just went, "Listen to this."
Yeah.
And it must have fit so well. They're gone, well,
oh, let's leave it in.
We can't unhear that now. Yeah,
no, I think that's true. I like this song, and it is. A lot of the fans quite like this number. It's always sort of come and gone in live sets over the years, but it always makes an appearance at some point. And I think the live version I recall, and it is on. Sorry, I know we're name dropping into live albums here, but Exit Stage Left there's a live version of Passage to Bangkok on this on that album. And then you say you got that great riff, and that is all done on cowbells by Pierce.
Yeah, and he does the same thing on the drum solo of All the World's a Stage as well.
Yeah, exactly.
He finishes his solo.
It's just it's. I personally think it's very clever, great song. I mean, some people think it might be slightly cheesy, but yeah, it gives it a slightly musical. Yeah, it's Rush. it's Rush.
Yeah,
you can't. It's unmistakably Rush. This song is all about numerous exotic locations around the world where the narrator has travelled in search of a sample of their yield.
Well, there's a nasty rumour going around that this is about smoking a certain.
Yeah, and that's what I've got here. Yeah,
which I highly doubt, and I certainly wouldn't condone.
No,
and I wouldn't know anything about that, to be honest. And I don't know where they think the band would be up to such.
Well,
degenerate activity.
I think. Well, it says it says hippie drug tourism of the 60s and 70s is basically sort of. I think it's more of a satire on that.
No, I'm sure it's about tourism.
Yeah, sure. I think so. It can be. Well, they say it's fairly easily discounted when you consider all three members of Rush have, in various interviews, mentioned their occasional use of cannabis around that time. But it's not. It's more about the travelling around and sampling.
I can't. Let's face it as well. You're not going to write a concept like 2112 High on Life. So, but a really good song, really good, big, nice, epic chorus as well. Yeah. Just a great way to open up a second half.
I mean, it is quite complex, and like the guitar solo section on this, it's very, very, even though it's sort of slow and deliberate, it's a very nice offbeat groove, and it counterpoints the guitar solo very nicely on this. And it's got time signature changes, but you wouldn't even realise that it had. It's very, very clever. The one thing Rush were always extremely good at was they'll have something that's quite complex, but draw a straight line through it. So
very seamlessly goes.
So it's seamlessly from one thing to another, and the emphasis is just changing around it. But and that was something Piet would often he talked about on his own DVDs about certain songs. He said I always try to hang on to the 4/4 as long as possible, and then either add a beat or drop a beat sort of later on, just to try and keep it as smooth as possible. Brilliant piece of musicianship just to do that, and which it's a tool he would use again and again and again, and to great effect. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that. No. I mean, it just I think, again, just as an aside, and this is just a little aside, live when they played this, it would be one of the very few times that Geddy Lee would play a rhythm guitar with his double neck and pad the song out with Taurus bass pedals later on in their existence. And so Yeah, just on the guitar solo section.
Yeah.
And then put back to it. That's for anyone who's interested in them sort of technicalities. But it would always add to. I always thought it was good. It always sounded good, and it always sounded full, even with that. So.
Yeah. Well, moving on then to the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's a bit of a dark but kind of dreamy.
Yeah.
song. You think it's going to kick in and with that ding, 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 and then it just do, and it just lifts you down slowly into the,
well, into the Twilight Zone.
Into the Twilight Zone, yeah.
Exactly. And again, it's
But you do think it's going to build up to kick in, but it doesn't, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's quite moody, really, and almost foreboding in sound and the soundscape of the song. But again, it's dedicated to the memory of the creator of the Twilight Zone, Rod Serling, because he died in 1975.
Was he the presenter?
Well, he's the creator of
right.
He was a creator of Twilight.
It was. He had the guy in a suit, isn't it? Imagine, if you will. He used to give the introduction. He was great. He was. Yeah. I wonder if there is like a box set of it, because I've not seen a lot of the Twilight Zone, but there are people that insist no, it was like the best thing ever, and it opened the gateways for so many different different genres and styles and films, and they're saying like there's entire films that have just nicked a whole thing from a Twilight Zone episode, and a whole series of they covered that.
Yeah,
you've set for a whole series of that. They covered it in half hour on,
Yeah, exactly. As you say, it starts off with that very melodic beginning, and then it just sort of seems to just go down very low. But it was it's a totally different sound, I think, for the album. It's one that stands out as a slightly different feel to the rest of it, if you know what I mean. I mean, the whole album's got that feel right throughout, if you know what it. But this one, it sort of really starts to. You think it's going to deliver something, and then it does something else. And it's quite a short song as well, really. But again, great lyrics on this one. Great lyrics. And I think on here it's described as textural style of writing and playing, which they would use again much later. And I would agree with this. Things like Witch Hunt and Mystic Rhythms, similar sort of approach to a theme. And I think the lyric says on here that the lyric contracts 2 episodes of the program into 2 short verses. First verse based on "Will the real Martian please stand up?", in which a friendly diner employee is found to be a 3-eyed alien. And verse 2 is about the episode "Stopover in a Quiet Town," where a hungover couple find themselves the playthings of a gigantic little girl. But on this one, Piet changed it to being a boy, to make it rhyme with toy. So it just, again, just little nuances there. It's again, you got the various extra electric and acoustic guitars on this, and Lee's vocals are different on this because his voice is doubled in the chorus with sort of his second vocal is whispering the lyrics along with his main voice, which is gives it that slightly eerie, unsettling.
Yeah, it is an eerie. There's an atmosphere to this song which I'm finding hard to put my finger on, but that's why I say dreamy. It's it's kind of mellow but unsettling at the same time. But that's what the Twilight Zone was, wasn't it? It was a eerie, atmospheric show.
Well, it did, and lulled you into false sense of security generally. And I think that's what sort of captured here musically, I feel, and certainly with the voice on them in the choruses with that whispered. It's almost got I wouldn't say sinister feel, but it's got a slightly more sinister feel to it, I guess. Because you're sort of trying to make out what he's actually whispering, but of course he's just whispering the melody. But I think it's one song that I've listened to a couple of times, obviously since reviewing it, and I thought, yeah, I haven't really listened to this for such a long time, which is the case with a lot of the older albums, and I've sort of, you can forget about it. So I thought it sort of sounded really fresh to me again. Listen, enjoyable.
Yeah.
I haven't got anything else to say about it, really.
No, that's fine. We'll move on then to Lessons.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
this is a bit different. This is all accredited to Mr. Lifeson, the lyrics as well.
Right, okay, that's interesting.
Because I didn't realise it until I looked at it. Says it, lyrics by Alec Lifeson, and also he wrote the music to this one as well. It wasn't a Lee Lifeson, not from according to what I've got in front of me. Yeah, it says here, Lessons is the only Rush song written entirely by Alec Lifeson. And I like the way the acoustic guitar comes in, very light, sort of reminiscent of something possibly sort of Zeppelin Come the Who would do. And then you got...
Yeah, I mean, it's quite light rock, isn't it? I mean, I think this is the one where they must have gone, right, if you want a radio song, that's it. You know, I don't know if it was purposely written as that, but I'm sure it must have been considered as it. Well, that's what you asked for, because I think that was the thing they did as well when the company were tearing their hair out, going, "What on earth is this?" They were going, "Well, hold on, no, side two," you know.
Yeah.
I think this, there would have been the single, you know.
Well, yeah, it's probably this one or the following one that possibly could have been used as a single. But we'll come to that in a short while. I think again, it's almost, it says here, it's almost defiant again that it returns as Lee shrieks out throughout the chorus of this in a style he had adopted, talking about when he was the totalitarian priests. So I don't think it's I think it says here it's not objectively poor. It just says the ambiguous and slightly unwieldy lyric highlights just how good Peart's writing is. I suppose so. And I think probably Lifeson and Lee would totally agree with that. But I still don't think it's a bad little set of lyrics for this song.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Alex, you don't write lyrics as good as Neil Peart.
Yeah, well,
that's Alex's day ruined. Yeah.
Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo, what a choker. Yeah. I'm not as good as Neil. Yeah. And Neil obviously regarded as one of the best lyricists around. You know, there's not going to be many people who can.
As well, you've got one song to compare to as well, you know. But,
exactly. I think it's a nice, jolly little number. It's just nice. It just bounces along quite nicely again. No, it's nothing to be. I wouldn't say it's a weak number. I think musically it's quite subtle and it comes across well to me, and it sits okay, I think, in this side. I think the variation on this second side is often overlooked. I think it's.
Well, I think that's what the second side was. It was the variation. It was. Well, there you go. You can play with this side. Yeah. This side is ours. You know.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's to mean that it's throwaway or filler or
No, I don't think
any
so.
less. Wasn't any more or less. Yeah, wasn't any less sincere than side one.
Oh no, the integrity is there, and once again, it's just showing that they've got so many different variations and their breadth as musicians. They're just showing that they've just got so many different colours on the palette of their easel for painting a picture. So I think it's a nice little gem of a number, really. You could imagine that would be quite good live, quite a nice little number to do live.
Yeah,
it's got a nice lively feel to it. I feel it's the acoustic guitar that drives it, obviously, which is well, again, I can't see anything wrong with it personally, and it's quite a fun little piece.
Yeah. So moving on then to Tears, and this is the ballad. And this is well, we're going back musically as well to we're going a bit more folky, you could argue, as you get on the first 3 albums. I read it as a breakup song. Standard ballad really. But yeah, no, it's a nice word.
Well, it's one of Rush's very few love songs.
Melancholic.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of the very few love songs, and this one is written completely by Lee. Yes, it is.
Oh right, so they got one each on this.
Yeah, they got one. Yeah, the lyrics are written by Geddy on this, as well as the music. I'm sure the music's by. I'm sure it's lyrics and music by Geddy Lee on this one. This one arguably could have been the one that's released as a single, because obviously ballads always sell quite big, and
yeah, exactly.
I quite like it, and it says here it's notable that this is the first Rush song to feature keyboards in a musical role, and it's not played by Geddy, but it's played by their graphic designer Hugh Syme.
And this is the same guy that does the synthesizer at the beginning.
I don't know if he does a synthesizer at the beginning of that, or whether
at the beginning of 2112. That
12, yeah, I'm not sure. It doesn't say it's by him on that. I think but it actually gives him. They actually credit him with it on here. I'd have to look at the album cover and see if they say anything about that. I'll have a look when you're talking, perhaps, and see if I can find anything on that. But it's definitely Hugh Syme playing the mellotron on this, which is a very 70s sounding keyboard.
Yeah.
I like the sound of a mellotron. It's very rich, and it's, as you say, it's almost got that melancholic. I suppose that might be why it's called a mellotron. Sound to it. It's very, very, very rich, and it's I think it might be that this might have been the best one to release as a single, but I think, like you said, Rush presented it and said, well, there you go. There's side 2 with a load of different songs. Pick one of them if you want.
Play with them. Yeah,
do whatever you will. I don't even know if any songs were ever released as a single.
I can't see how, right, you want another Working Man, you've got that on Train to Bangkok. You've got that riff, that opening riff, that down, you can play with that.
Yeah.
That will please the rock fans. Lessons is a nice radio number.
Yeah.
Tears is a nice ballad. And again, I'm not saying I don't think the band were as cynical as I'm seeing it, but I think organically they would have been writing anyway. And I think they just would have put them aside and gone, right, there we go. We'll write the big epic because we're liking that. They've done that already with a collection of other songs. So those songs would have come together anyway. And I've gone, well, this is nice. Right, we've got this, got that. Right, well, that will please them. We'll give them that. And then boom. With excuse me. But yeah, I think that is, I can't see it any other way.
No, I think I would tend to agree with you that they did it that way, and I think this also, and again I'm going by the notes here. Again, it says here one criticism that has been levelled at Rush throughout their career is that while their music is technically excellent, there is little in the way of emotion or feel in their music, which I think is ridiculous to say.
I think that's bullshit.
Yeah, it is an absolutely ridiculous. And they're saying this song appears to be an attempt to counter that criticism, but its over sentimentality with the swelling strings and the yearning vocal, it says here, sounds trite. Again,
Well, there's just no pleasing some people.
yeah, I
There,
know. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's
No, I think I've been given a lump in my throat more than many a time by Rush lyrics and songs, and I think they're. I would argue the songs aren't quite so personal. You don't really know. Oh no, I don't even think. Either.
Well, it might be that I think we've.
I mean, again, I think Maiden, but Maiden's lyrics are 90% fictional, and they're normally based on a book, right, or a historical event. So it's the telling of a story.
Well, yeah, which is what really Rush are the same. I think Piet would generally write from the third person's perspective rather than being that one. I think that might come. That would come later. I think certainly with things obviously after, and we'll get to that. But Vapor Trails, there's a lot of personal stuff in there from Neil because of what he had been through. But he said I couldn't not address it. But I think with this, I know this is Lee doing this, but just as a general, the way Piet wrote, he sort of most of the time it seemed to come more from a third person perspective, as someone viewing, like you say, and so as you said, there's no pleasing some people, but I think it's a nice little gem.
Like Maiden, like Sabbath, like Zeppelin, like Kiss. I think the music press have had to eat humble pie over the years, and Rush are definitely one of those bands. They're certainly not as respected as they're made out to be now. I think a lot of people have arrived late to the party, and they've run ahead of the crowd and gone, ta-da! Yeah, I'm here, and look at everyone I brought. You know, they've run ahead to the crowd and then pretended that they were leading the crowd the whole time. And and it's I'm going to go on a bit of a rant now, but every year, without fail, you can set your clock to it. You have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I was just thinking about Rock and Roll.
We've just had, and every year Facebook as well, because I'm a member of a lot of different music groups because I use them to share my videos. Every year you my enter band here can't believe that isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Why do you care? Do you like the band any less then for it? Do you like the band? How does them not being in that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame affect your liking of that band? Does it make them any less musicians? Does it affect their ticket sales? Is it going to give them, and there's this accolade of, it's a self-appointed committee at a self-appointed institution by Rolling Stone magazine that slagged off all your favorite bands at the beginning anyway. And now, you're seeking, and rock and roll and metal and punk and all the rest of it was always out on the outskirts. It was always the other. It was always on the outside. It was always the alternative. You remember that? Alternative music?
Yeah.
And you're seeking approval of the people that you were originally raging against,
Yeah. Exactly.
There was another band I just mentioned there. But yeah,
Yeah, I think for the
It was
bands,
pointed
it
out
probably
for a
doesn't
while
matter.
as well. You know, Martin Scorsese had never won an Oscar, and then they just gave him one to to save the embarrassment for The Departed. But again, it was just like, well,
No.
is Goodfellas less a good a film because it didn't win an Oscar that year? Who cares, you know?
Exactly.
And
It doesn't matter, and I think with a lot of the bands, they realise it doesn't really matter. And I dare say the guys in Rush were not that bothered that they weren't inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for, well, years and years and years. The same has happened to Yes. Yes, we're not inducted into the Hall of Fame for donkey's years. So doesn't matter. Doesn't stop them making music, does it? You know,
no,
and it's so I think it's sort of, as you say, because it's some sort of self-appointed thing. Um, so what? You know, so what?
and next time you get upset about who isn't in it, maybe have a look at who is and go, do you really want them in?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Do you want to be affiliated with these? You know, just give it over. No, no, definitely not. Um, anyway, we digress slightly.
yeah.
But with, I think with Tears, it is, yeah, say it's a nice little ballad. I don't think it ever got. I don't think they ever released a single off of this album. Well, certainly not over here. Again, it might be a case of trying to dig into the background. I couldn't see
Would there
anything.
have been an abbreviated version of? Because on
Not unless you found anything, Joe.
well, no, I'm just saying because on compilations, like say, you know, the Best of Rush, Sound of Radio, for example, there's like a shortened version of
Oh well,
21.
Spirit, yeah, Spirit of Radio, yeah.
There's the Overture and Temples of. Yeah, would they have released that? Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. They might have done. They might have done, but I dare say it was probably a limited run of them. Um, I nothing. I can't really remember, and I would have to do a bit of digging about that. I couldn't see anything obvious about one of these songs, but specifically one of these songs on side two being packaged as a single. After all
Yeah,
of it, I'm fairly certain they were not done. If anyone out there knows, let us know.
and if you do know, let us give us a comment. And I don't actually say this enough, but well, I don't think you should be prompted to leave a comment if you want to leave one, but apparently it says to ask. So if you like what you've heard, give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave us a comment. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, if
that's
we're
it.
wrong about something or if there's a detail that we've touched on that we don't know the answer to, and you do know, please do correct us in the comments and you know point us in the right direction, and let us know also what you think about this album and what your favorite song is. What do you think of side two? And yeah, when did you buy the album? When did you first hear it? Join the conversation. That's what this show's for. It's your show.
It
So
is. Well, and I'm sure you've said it anyway, Joe, that at the end of the day, we're just giving our comments. It's not definitive. And there are people out there who probably know an awful lot more than what we do about these things.
oh, of course,
But
yeah,
and it's just a way of reviewing the albums and just our perspective of it, which at times is limited. So it
yeah,
just
and
we're
it's a
doing
good excuse
yeah, we're doing the best we can.
for us
Yeah, no,
to just work our way through the catalogue one week at a
yeah,
time because we probably wouldn't have done it
yeah,
otherwise. So with a show to do, you kind of got to.
yeah, indeed.
But yeah,
But
and again, this show can be used as an introduction or an afterthought. Listen to the album all week yourself, and then listen to the show and leave some comments and join in, or do it a week behind and use this as an introduction and then listen to the album. Do it whatever order you want.
exactly. um, certainly go again. So I know we digress slightly with Tears. I think because it's such a ballad, it's sort of in its tempo and timbre, the feel of it. It also sets up because of the contrast, increases the power of the last song of the album. Something for Nothing. It's quite it was regarded as a reasonably early classic, this song as well. Something
Well,
for
yeah, I
Nothing.
think this is a really good album closer. Actually,
Yeah,
it kind of comes full circle because it does still touch on Iron Man.
yeah,
Um, we discussed people just are really, really got a stone in their shoe about the fact that Iron Man books aren't illegal. You are allowed to read them and enjoy them, and you wouldn't. And another shock is that they actually sell quite well. So it's not that strange occurrence, but there's a lot of people that do have their nose put out a joint about the Iron Man.
Yeah, I know. It just What your thoughts about this one? This song.
It's a nice one. Yeah, it's it starts off quite mellow and then sort of kicks in later on. I think it builds up to a nice climax as well, and it has a bit of familiarity as well with the previous albums. But I think it closes quite nicely as well, and closes the album quite well as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, again, it's Peart's lyrics on this, so very, very good set of lyrics with it. Great music to match. Lovely intro with a very nice sounding guitar, but there's also some really nice bass playing on this one. I mean, as an aside, the musicianship on this album, I think, is really good. I mean, they're all absolutely excelling themselves in here, and they all sort of come to the fore, and they're almost dueling with each other and taking lead parts. And on this one, the bass on the intro is really nice, very nicely played, sounds really good. And then you say you're going into it. Apparently Peart was inspired to write this song after passing a piece of graffiti stating the platitude, "Freedom isn't free." And I don't know if you've got that in your book. It says here, while many songs deal with the idea of fate being a benevolent force, or that everything will turn out all right in the end, Peart totally refutes this idea, but in a positive way. Rather than waiting perhaps in vain for things to work out right, Something for Nothing is a call to arms for everyone to make their own destiny and realise their dreams by their own means, with the lines, "In your head is the answer, let it guide you along, let your heart be the anchor and the beat of your own song." So again, I've got the lyrics here anyway.
This sounds a bit fascist to me. I don't know what he was thinking when he wrote that. God, he must have. Yeah.
But again, I think it's again, it's a good fast-paced progressive hard rock. I think it sort of rivals that of 2112 in places. But again, I think what makes this song for me is the bass and the energetic runs, and they're quite quick as well. He plays the bass like a lead instrument on this one. And considering when you listen to it, it's only a trio. It shows you because it's all it can be, really, a power trio.
I think it's a good album closer, but it's a hidden gem.
Oh yeah, it was regarded
canon as well, and that's what's quite funny about this album is that you've got this classic, almost cliche of an album, but the second half of it is one of the most underrated, overlooked. What's the word? I wouldn't say underrated. I wouldn't say 2112 is overrated, but it is over. It's definitely exposed. I mean, you can get a 2112 t-shirt in H&M now. You can get.
Oh yeah.
You can go to HMV and get a 2112 mug, but. And in the rock canon, 2112 is rightly regarded as, a quintessential album. But so many people, I think, tend to skip side 2. So hopefully after listening to this, we'll give you give you a kick up the arse and check out side 2, because there's some good hidden gems on there and some underappreciated tracks, and Something for Nothing is definitely one of them.
Oh yeah. Again, it became quite a favourite for the fans. I don't know how long they played it for, like live, with regards to subsequent tours. I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen them play this. I don't think so. I don't think I have. No, it doesn't spring to mind anyway. But it was regarded certainly earlier on from this time forward. I'm sure they played it on subsequent tours after 2112 tour. But I hadn't seen them at that point. So, but no, again, I think a great, I agree with you, a great way of finishing the album off. So I'm just seeing if I can see anything lyrically that would be, it's just, I think the lyrics that I've already mentioned are probably the things that sort of drove this track along. And I'm trying to see if anyone, acknowledgement for the keyboards, you were talking about the keyboards. It just says, I think it's just Tears that Hugh Syme is credited on. And Hugh Syme would come back and occasionally appear on a track here and there in future albums, because he was quite a good piano player as well.
Not a bad little credit to have under your belt.
No, exactly, to be part of that until Geddy started getting more into the keyboards, which is something we were going to end up talking about anyway, as they progressed. But again, great way to finish the album. Good song. There's not really much more to add to that. I've certainly got nothing else to add to it, unless you have.
No,
Joe,
that's it then. No, I've pretty much summed everything up. I think it's the first masterpiece by the band. Again, this is the album where the band finally come into their own. They've evolved and over the first three, but this is where they have arrived, and this is the standard going forward. This is, the start of the golden period of the band, really. And things get very interesting going forward. So join us next week for a farewell to Kings. And there is a live album released after this, but we're going to do, once we get through all the studio albums, we're going to do an episode dedicated just to all the live albums. We're just going to do one long ass show, just covering the lot. So we will cover All the World Is a Stage. But next up, we've got a farewell to Kings. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves. All the best. And thanks for watching.
Yeah. Cheerio, folks. See ya.
Thanks very much.